a little trip with me, and hopefully you can see how the hood, suburbs, and Main Street are all connected. Enough respect, we network across the globe, cause it's a global market in case you didn't know. And since we all about information flow, let me be the first one to welcome you to Tech Zone with Paul Amadeus Lane. Let's talk tech, cause technology changing the game. It's all good in the hood, it's everywhere. Now let's get to the show, cause we live on air, yeah.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Tech Zone. I am Paul Amadeus Lane. I am your czar of technology here on KMET 1490 ABC News Radio, live stream, YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, Spreaker, SoundCloud. We got you covered. You can always check out the Tech Zone. And our show today, we have some great guests joining us. I know I say that every show, but this is really a superlative of guests that we have on today. Coming up in our last segment, we're going to talk about some music and technology. In our second segment, we're going to talk about diversity in tech with my great friend, Samara Lynn, tech editor over there at Black Enterprise Magazine. But in our first segment, we are going to talk about something that happened last Friday to be exact. President Trump came out with an executive order, his immigration policy. And unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you have seen ones who support the action, ones who do not support the action. One thing that has really just blown my mind about this whole thing is that how ones in the tech industry have come out and talked about the dangers of this immigration policy, what it could do to workers, what it could do to the economy, and so forth. While many recognize the need for safety in this country. And one statement was put out by the Consumer Technology Association and its president and CEO, Gary Shapiro. And in this statement, Gary talked about the caution on President Trump's recent immigration policy. What made Gary feel compelled to write this statement and to come out and talk about the concerns of this policy? Well, why don't we go ahead and ask him? And joining me right now is President and CEO of the Consumer Technology Association, Gary Shapiro. Gary, it's an honor talking to you, my friend. How are you?
Paul, it's an honor to be talking to you. You were at CES, and we appreciated it in Las Vegas, and now we have a chance to talk with each other.
Absolutely. And Gary, one of the highlights that I love about CES is your keynote and all the other things that you do. And what really caught my eye was the statement that you put out on the 29th about the president's executive order on immigration. And in that statement, Gary, it really talked about some concerns, not only in the tech industry, but also in the economy too. And Gary, what made you come out so direct with some of the points that you brought out in that press release?
Well, as you know, the executive order has three components to it, or had three components. One was 7 countries were affected in terms of limiting people coming in from those 7 countries to the U.S., including not just those with visas, but the second part of it was green card holders. And the third was a halt to refugees coming in from Syria. So there's 3 parts. So one of the parts has been taken out already, and that is having to do with the green card holders. These are people that live in the United States. They're entitled to be here for the rest of their life. They come and go. They have family overseas, and some of them on personal trips or business trips, and they just couldn't get back in. A lot of them are employed by technology and other companies, and just as a not only business, but fundamental human fairness to our fellow Americans, in a sense, they view themselves as Americans. They may not be citizens, but they're entitled to be here. And it just seemed unfortunate they weren't allowed to come in. That was corrected after the statement went out. I don't know if we played a role in it. We weren't the only ones that objected to it. The other 2 having to do with refugees and also just people coming to visit from those 7 countries. We could talk about those separately as well.
Awesome. And Gary, one of the things that I really appreciate about the CTA and going to the many events that you put on is just that how it's global. I mean, when it comes to the tech industry, when it comes to members of the media, it's a global family. And Gary, did you ever think when this executive order was released that they would be kind of a uniformity when it comes to the tech industry and also ones out there with the economy, just to say, hey, let's take a look at this and let's try to make some improvements, because we understand we have to be safe and we understand the responsibility the president has, but let's think about this a little bit more because it impacts a lot of industries and also the economy.
Well, you're right. The president has access to information that we don't have. And I mean, when he stood up and swore that he would protect and defend the Constitution, I read that as he's concerned about all our safety, no matter who the president is. They've all somewhat changed when they get into the presidency, no matter what they say in the campaign trail. So I have no idea what information he's getting. And of course, we're all Americans in a sense that we're living here, and we want our families and friends and businesses and the whole country to be safe. That's his job. So what he knows, I don't know. But by all accounts, and I think even we're even hearing from the White House itself, it seems that this was not perfectly executed, or even the language wasn't phrased right. It came as a surprise. There wasn't a lot of consultation. And I understand the desire for surprise, because you don't want the bad guys to rush in ahead of any order. But look, every presidency has the first few months and few weeks where people say and do things they definitely shouldn't have done. It's a rapid learning process. This one, sadly, was done before a lot of the key people were in place in positions that could have and should have looked at it. And the lack of consultation, I think, hurt it. Both President Obama and President Clinton have spoken pretty forcefully about us restricting immigration and limiting in dangerous countries. So there is some consistency there, and I think it's been overplayed in the press. And President Reagan, ironically, in his final speech, talked very compellingly about his vision when he always said this great city on the hill, the shining city on the hill. His vision was a more open America where anyone could come who had the heart and mind and purpose to come here. So what President Trump did actually in his intent, I think, wasn't too far removed what other presidents before him have done, except perhaps Reagan, who's probably even more open than either President Clinton or President Obama. But I think that this has come off because of the religious feature as a little probably more religious side than anyone would have wanted. And it's caused repercussions in terms of the perception of the United States around the world. And that is not helpful for business. It's not helpful for our desire to get the best and the brightest people here, which has been our strategy, actually, implicit or explicit, for many, many decades. It's allowed us to be the most innovative and creative country in the world. It's not helped our national standing. A lot of it is hyperbole. I think the media is building on its own story at this point. But definitely the perception is not good for business. The aspect which still, I think, concerns me as a representative of the tech industry that's in the order itself is the exclusion, which seems rather arbitrary, of people from 7 countries that are some of them are academics, some of them are technology people, some of them are attending or going to conferences. And that's unfortunate. I'm not sure there's an absolute ban here, but they're going to be looking at some of them, I assume. I think there's going to be some tweaking of the order along the way, is my guess. It clearly was a mistake in execution, if not in language. And also, now there is a debate as to whether he's just trying to go after Muslims and make a point here. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't have any knowledge of what the president is actually trying to do. But I do think that the process in the White House will probably be changed as a result of how this has been issued and perceived. So it's definitely become quite a firestorm around the world. It hasn't been great for the United States reputation. I personally feel pain about it on so many different levels, just as being part of the tech industry, as an American and wants to be proud of their country, and as someone who believes that the welcomeness to immigrants, which can make a difference in our country, is a very important part of who we are.
And Gary, you kind of touched on it about the 7 countries that are mentioned in this ban right here. And what impact do you see it having on the tech industry? Because many people out there who may not be immersed in the tech industry, like myself and you, may not fully understand just how impactful this can be to the tech industry. You mind commenting on that, please?
Well, actually, it's the actual 7 countries. The honest truth is they're very small population countries. In fact, if you put them all together, it's less than the population of Indonesia, which is a majority Muslim country as well, which is not on the list. And lots of majority Muslim countries are not on the list. There definitely have been a few companies like Google and I believe Facebook and a few others who have released actual numbers of how it has impacted them, not only in terms of their employees that live and work in the U.S., but perhaps in terms of those that were visiting. It's impacted professors who are about to start at jobs. It's impacted people attending conferences. But I don't think we should exaggerate the number. The overall number is probably in the thousands, not the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands in terms of people who were surprised and couldn't come here or are directly affected. I think the impact that's bigger is the perception. Is this a future trend? The way it was done so clumsily. And I think it's a learning experience, but I don't want to destroy the reputation of the United States by continuing this and relying upon that this was a hall affront to the Muslim world. It really wasn't intended to be that. I'm not going to think that that's the motive that behind President Trump doing that. I think he had a list of countries that he'd inherited from the Obama administration that they claimed that they felt were the highest risk and they wanted to do something about it. And their intentions were the safety and security of the United States in a way that they thought was best. In my view, they definitely made huge errors of judgment in language, in how they executed, in every step of the way along this. And it's been a horrible learning experience and it's hurt the reputation. But a lot of the backlash has also come from people who feel very upset that President Trump was elected. The nation, probably the world, expected Secretary Clinton would win. And this has become an avenue for people to express their frustration and their fears. And it's fair to say that there are fears of people living in the United States now or trying to enter the United States or have a legitimate reason to be here. And they fear because they're in some group, they've got themselves in a fury that somehow their status in living here will be affected. Whether it's just not ethnicities and religious people, it's even whether people are gay or not. There's this self-creating fury of people talking to each other. They're genuinely scared. And I think that I don't want to put a value judgment whether they should be scared or not. I think that we have constitutional and legal protections that I don't think President Trump is seeking to remove. But I also think, and I'm hopeful that President Trump could do a little bit more to make these people feel more comfortable that they're not going to be threatened. He's not trying to change the world order. He's focusing on safety and security in a very narrow and hopefully narrow way that really makes a difference. So I think both sides should, get a grip, frankly, and recognize that sometimes mistakes will be made that harm people. And I was actually heartened a little bit last night by the seriousness, by the demeanor of President Trump when he was responding to the fact, I think, it's speculation, that he had just basically went to a military base to welcome the remains of the first military person that was killed, in a sense, because of an order he gave. And I think the weight of the office is increasingly on him, and it's going to be a learning process, but he was fairly elected. He's our president, and we have to deal with it as Americans. And as President Obama said, we have to wish him success and, frankly, do things which will try to support him rather than hurt him. And that's my goal, personally, is that, the tech industry is one of our crown jewel industries. It's a great industry. It's the envy of the entire world. It relies on getting the best and the brightest citizens to the United States and people to work for tech companies. And we've had a good system and not a perfect system. And actually, President Trump and candidate Trump has promised some things which will make the tech industry stronger. For example, right now, our country's tax system is set up to encourage we pay the highest taxes. We can't get the immigrants we want here that easily. And both those factors put together and the inability to repatriate foreign money has made it so that tech companies are encouraged to put facilities all around the world. So I think President Trump will recognize, I hope, that we have to create incentives which encourage tech companies to move their people from around the world here and the best and the brightest from around the world and allow the highly skilled immigrants we desperately need. There's a gap of about 1 million jobs now that are expected to be available in the tech industry, and there are not Americans today to fill them. So we need to start training people that have the STEM education, that have the deep data skills, that could do analysis and understand cloud computing. And the rest of the world, frankly, in some countries are doing a better job than we are of training people for those jobs. So we're Americans, and I think rather than just try to destroy the president who's fairly elected, I think we have to do everything we can to try to support him when he needs support, to recognize good policies that he has, and when he makes mistakes, as clearly I think some mistakes were made here, we have to be. I think we could respond forcefully but politely in saying this is not the best way to do things.
And Gary, I'm glad you touched on that as far as STEM education and where you think this president's mindset is when it comes to tech, because I think a lot of people were wondering, because he really doesn't use email that much by his own admission and certain things like that. So when it comes to STEM education, especially when it comes to let's say education in schools, do you hope that President Trump really invest in STEM education beginning at elementary schools, going to junior highs, and also going to high school, so that here in this country we can be competitive when it comes to some of these jobs out there?
Well, I certainly hope that he'll focus on STEM education, but what I really think is not just about STEM education, it's also where I think if you especially look at the people who voted for President Trump, a lot of them are in occupations, or they have the opportunity to gain skills, not just in STEM, because we have this myth in the United States that everyone has to go to college and get a 4-year degree. And the truth is there's not enough jobs for everyone who goes to college and get a 4-year degree. We need technical education to have the same respect and emphasis that we have with college education. There's nothing wrong with community colleges and technical schools, and we need those people who are trained in technical schools. We need, especially if we're trying to get factories back, we need people who understand electronics, who understand basically how to deal with metal and technology and robotics and factories and things like that. And that we have not emphasized that. And we've gotten a culture of parents who think that every kid has to go to a 4-year college or they're not respectable, and that's terrible. So what we've ended up with is literally millions of kids with worthless degrees and big debts, and that's a problem. And I'm actually confident. I think President Trump's going to be talking about that and focusing on technical training and education in a very different way. And you talked about his lack of experience in technology. Personally, that doesn't really concern me that much. I think President Obama was exceptionally facile with technology, and he was great for the tech industry. I think he was not great for business in general. He had a total lack of experience in his top advisors in the business environment, and it's been a very difficult environment for businesses in the country the last 8 years. I think President Trump might be the exact opposite. He might be great for the business community. He may not have an affinity with tech. I hope he does. But, he gets to choose. And some of his advisors may not be that familiar with tech, but it's my job, frankly, to make sure that we get in front of them and we advocate our case about why the technology industry is important. But I think we have a great case to make. Look, every other country in the world wants what we want. We have literally dozens of billion-dollar companies that didn't exist just a few years ago. We dominate the world's internet creations. We have great companies like Apple and Qualcomm and Intel and TI and Hewlett-Packard and so many others and so many different creative categories. We have Hollywood. We have great drug companies. We're requires innovation and creating something new. No one does it better, and it's our culture. It's our educational system, and even at the graduate level, it teaches our kids to ask why or why not. It's also our Constitution, our First Amendment that lets us speak out. Even me as an association head, I could speak out against the president and not worry that I'm going to be arrested. I mean, this is something that a lot of countries don't have, like China, one of our great competitors. They don't allow their people access to the internet in a free way. They don't allow Google or Facebook or others. They don't allow great American companies to participate there, sometimes fully or even without a partner. So we have Europe. They're going after our best companies. They throw lawsuits at them all the time. I think President Trump could stand up for us with China and stand up for us with Europe. They could do a whole bunch of very, very good things which will benefit Americans and the American tech industry. And frankly, it's my job to try to encourage them to do that, and that's what I'll be doing.
Absolutely. And Gary, I don't think the public knows just how important the Consumer Technology Association is. I think sometimes they just think of CES and that's it. But over there, your organization does a lot when it comes to policies, when it comes to shaping things tech. And Gary, it's been an honor speaking with you again. It's always a pleasure, to have the president and CEO talk and give us his take on things that are going on in the tech world. And Gary, if one's like to find out more information about the Consumer Technology Association, how would they go about doing that, Gary?
Well, it's CTA.tech. TECH. It's just, we have a website, www.cta.tech, and you can click there as much as you want. We got pages and pages of information on issues and what we do. There's the events like the CES and others. But thanks a lot for spending all this time with me on such an important issue. I really appreciate it.
Now, Gary, we'd love to have you back on again because we could spend an hour talking about things, because I know you were testifying the other day on the Hill. You were out there too, right?
Yeah, the Senate Commerce Committee, and it was on rules, but some of the issues you talked about came up, and it's on top of everyone's mind right now. It's a very emotional issue on both sides of it.
And Gary, I have to say, I think you have the coolest job in the world, my friend. You just do.
You're right. I'm very lucky. Thank you. It's a great industry, and we got a long way to go still. A lot more technology and innovation coming if we get it right. Absolutely.
Whatever I can do to help, my friend, always come on and let us know and talk about things going tech. And you have a great day, and you have a great team too. And Gary, it's been an honor talking to you, my friend.
Thank you very much.
The amazing Gary Shapiro giving us some food for thought when it comes to the immigration policy. And I love the way he opened up about technology in general and what technology may look like under a Trump administration. I tell you, their organization does a lot out there advocating for technology up on the Hill. And definitely follow them, check them out. Great information, great company, great staff. I love them all, Gary. Thank you so much for joining me, my friend. Can't wait to talk to you again. All right, when we get back, we're going to talk about diversity in tech with my great friend Samara Lynn, tech editor at Black Enterprise Magazine. Stay tuned. We'll be right back in 2 and 2 here on the Tech Zone.